Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the first of a few budget presentations by division staff for both the council and the public to listen and ask questions. I don't believe there are any agenda items or additions, so I will ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council. Seeing none, there are no delegations. And I will just read a brief intro before we begin. As I said before, welcome to our 2020 budget meeting, where we will hear presentations from the Coburg Public Library, the Art Gallery of Northumberland, General Government, Planning and Development, Economic Development, and the V13 Innovation Centre. As you know, our theme for this budget year is to refurbish, restore, and revitalize Coburg assets for 2020. With a tax levy goal of 1.9%. Please keep in mind the 5 pillars from the 2019-2022 strategic plan, which include people, places, programs, partnerships, and prosperity. We want to thank Ian, Joanne, and the Finance Department for all their hard work preparing for these open budget sessions. I know we throw a lot at you, and we really appreciate the time you put into this. We invite council members to ask the presenters any questions regarding their budgets, especially any budgets that exceed our goal of 1.9%. Please remember we will be allocating funds for this budget year that belong to the residents of our town. Also, I would ask that in preparation for our budget deliberations on January 9th and January 10th, if needed, you make note of any new projects or additions to division payroll as we go through these division budgets. I also want to see a show of hands from council to allow the open forum to be made available to the public after each presentation. Does anyone have any problem with that as opposed to the end? No? Okay, thank you. Good. So, Mr. Clerk, if you would go through the budget revised schedule and the public notice that was done for that public engagement.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So we'll listen to the agenda through the Communications Department. Draft revised schedule for the 2020 budget meeting schedule is listed and issued on the agenda, as well as the Town of Coburg website under public notices. This is issued November 15th. Not much of a change, but all the changes are listed within the 2020 schedule as set out, attached to the agenda. And like I said, if any of the public there, Ashley Purdy, the Communications Manager, has put some of those those pieces of papers for the new schedule on where the agendas are at the front of the door, so members of the gallery can pick those up. If not, it'll be online for the public to see.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So I will ask Tammy Robinson, I'm assuming you're presenting, to come forward and present the 2020 budget for the Town of Coburg Library.
Thank you very much. Yes, now everybody can hear me. So before we get to the budget, the library would like to do a presentation of what we've accomplished and where we are, and this is all in relation to the town's strategic plan as well, so we can show you how we match up and align with you. So when reviewing the Town of Coburg strategic plan documents, it became quite apparent that the town's goals actually closely align with those of the library, and the town's plan can be directly supported by the library. The first pillar of the town's strategic plan is people. Our public library use has a proven positive impact on health and well-being, and regular library users report higher life satisfaction, happiness, and sense of purpose in life. Public libraries increasingly act as anchor institutions for regeneration, placemaking, supporting local economic development, and providing much-needed cultural and social infrastructure. Our library offers access to a wide range of municipal services, enhancing and extending the council support for the people. For instance, our library is open more hours than Town Hall, Plus, we provide information about services that are available at the town, as well as many of those services. For instance, we sell bus tickets, we assist with online forms and applications, and we support Coburg residences with processes they may compete at Town Hall. And as you can see, this past year we had over 140,000 visits by residents, and nearly 7,000 residents of Coburg have a membership card. And this number represents active memberships, not memberships people took out 10 years ago and no longer come to the library. These are people who are actively using the library. And we also go out and attend a lot of events as well. One of our main goals is actually to visit people where they are. We can't rely on everybody to come in the library to see us, so we go out to see them. The library is delivering a range of targeted services which combat loneliness and social isolation, including events and activities which encourage people to come together, make friends, and participate in their community. Not only is our library an accessible gathering place, but it's also a space where we provide programs for all ages. In this image, you can see the garden beds that were funded by the grant from New Horizons being tended and enjoyed by residences who may not have the garden or the space to garden if they lived in an apartment or a condo building. We've also provided over 11,000 computer sessions to Coburg residences. And one of our most popular rooms is our local history room with indexes of local newspapers. We also have Our Ontario, which is a photo and information database, and these are used quite frequently. Topics included in our programming vary greatly, from research and learning programs to hobbies and crafting, author visits, movies, gaming, technology, and so much more. When the town of Coburg was working on the cultural master plan with MBD Insights Consulting Group, our library was highly valued when Coburg residences were polled. In fact, I was very happy to learn that when members of the community were asked about their satisfaction with various events in Coburg, 92% of respondents valued the library programs and activities. We were actually right at the very top of the list for Coburg. With over 30 attendees each week in our Boomers program, this program directly contributes to the social well-being of Coburg's senior population. It's posed as an infotainment type of program, and Boomers and Beyond provides an opportunity for attendees to learn about something new in an exciting way. For example, you can see in this picture, we have Primrose the donkey who came to visit the library from the Primrose Donkey Sanctuary, and patrons were able to learn about the donkeys, their care, and they were able to pet and feed the donkeys. The Boomers program is for 55 and over, and the Boomers love it when they can get this close and personal with an animal or anything that comes to the library without having to trip over a lot of little kids. So this is specifically geared for that age group. We even had a larger hit or a bigger hit when we hosted the Ghost Hunters, the Paranormal Seekers, as well as a local medium. Our new Gamer Night program certainly fills a void locally in this community. There is not a public space for these patrons to gather and play video games, board games, Dungeons and Dragons, Smash Brothers, or other related activities. We only begun hosting these programs in the fall of 2019, but we have quickly attracted nearly 40 attendees each session. These are held every other Tuesday, and just this past Tuesday, we had a total of 52 teens and young adults come out to the library to participate in all of the gaming action. While we have great success with our children's programs, we've consistently found that these families could not always make a rigid program schedule fit their lifestyle. So we provide a STEAM program, Maker Station, and a lot of variety of other passive programs, so families can come when it best suits their schedule and participate in the library anytime that we're actually open. And along with our regular Mother Goose sessions, these programs for babies and their caregivers not only promote literacy and learning, but they provide a social outlet for caregivers. We've actually been told that these sessions are the highlight of a new parent's week. Partnership is another strategic goal for the town of Coburg, And conservatively, the library estimates that we've been able to provide nearly $8,000 in enhanced programs and services at absolutely no cost to the town or to the library. While we would likely still be able to support the programs and services without these partnerships, we would not be nearly as successful as we have been. For example, the draw that Free Pizza has for our Gamers Night far outweighs any snack the library would be able to provide without the partnership from Pizza. And these are a few of the partnerships we have. The Gamers Night have been sponsored by Pizza Coburg, Video Game City, and the Northumberland Gamers Guild. The Boomers and Beyond program is sponsored by Fisher's Foodland, who provides a free lunch every week, and Just Brew It, as well as a private donation from our community. We also have ongoing partnerships with Dortwood Observatory, the YMCA, and the Coburg DBIA. Prosperity was another area in your strategic plan, and public libraries in Canada represent an ROI of $5.63 for every $1 invested. That is an incredible amount. So for every $1, ROIs $5.63. This is achieved through providing programs and services that empower residents to improve their qualifications. Supported by a skilled and experienced library staff, the Coburg Public Library delivers lifelong interventions from early years to adult learning through to active aging, all of which help learners of all ages build their skills and confidence. One report actually quotes that 76% of users improve their qualifications with the assistance of the library. And without long-term sustainable funding, our public library staff cannot support the range of learning activities that meet the needs of the Coburg community. For prosperity, we also have, the library has special skills where we can help residents increase their employability. Our public library provides a low-cost, high-value mechanism for the government to invest in helping people build the skills and confidence they need to improve their employability. And over the past number of years, the Coburg Public Library has transformed its digital offerings, providing an unparalleled, trusted digital infrastructure which helps people in Coburg access the Intranet, build their skills, and make use of digital services. With more government services from local, provincial, and federal levels moving to online, our library is providing free access and assistance in accessing and using these services. We also support research at the library's local history facility, as I mentioned earlier, the local history room. A great example of a community group we were actually able to support quite a bit was the Sportsman's Hall of Fame. They've used our local history room over the past number of years to collect the historical records that they use for their display. Also, our space rentals, by using our large rotary room, and we also have a cozy meeting room, many small businesses and local groups were able to further their own goals without the overhead of having their own large meeting space. You can see we circulated quite a few items, and they're not always traditional items. We have things like telescopes and seeds as well. And our library contributes to reducing Coburg's eco-footprint by providing a shared, sustainable, and community-specific collection of materials. We're very excited that next year, as we look forward to 2020, next year our library will be celebrating 25 years in the C. Gordon King building. Not so new anymore, but it's still referred to as the new library. We will be celebrating for the full year with plenty of free programs and events, along with a few surprises for all the members of the community. We especially look forward to putting the finishing touches on our outdoor gardens and providing a wide range of programs for everyone to enjoy and explore. The Wi-Fi service at the library is highly popular, with it being one of the few places in town where you can have access without time limits or making a purchase. However, there's more work that needs to be done with our Wi-Fi service. We want to ensure that our system is providing the best service, as well as a mechanism to gather the information about how the patrons are using this service and how many. So currently we're not able to attain all the information that we need that's relevant to those questions. We still want to know how many sessions people are using, what the devices are they're using on them. So we'll be working on that next year of how to get that in place. We're also restructuring our staffing model next year. We're making some major changes to how we work within the library. And these staffing changes, where the whole staffing model has changed, that was to help us meet our budget needs and also the community's expectation of excellent customer service. Some challenges we have coming up. All of these funding cuts you see in this slide are all provincial funding cuts. In just these top three alone, the interlibrary loan, the capacity funding, and the funding for databases, we've experienced these over the last couple of years at a loss of approximately $50,000. And once more information is released from the provincial government regarding development charges, we could experience an additional $30,000 to $35,000 loss in funding. So just over the past 2.5 years, we're looking at about $80,000 we've lost in funding from the province. So looking forward, as mentioned earlier, the building is now 25 years old and increasingly in need of repairs and maintenance. The board is going to be seeking clarity as to what we are responsible for and what the town is responsible for. So this is a topic of discussion we're hopeful to begin in 2020 with the goal of drafting a memorandum of understanding for the next year. One other thing looking forward is we're seeking to reorganize the furniture throughout the library, much of which has been in the same place since the library opened in 1995. And by making changes to the layout, we're going to create a more accessible library for patrons and better sight lines and safety for our staff. And along with this, we are continually evaluating the service points used by the public for form and function. Ultimately, we want to provide the best, most accessible service possible. We also go out quite a bit in the community with our mobile library service. We visit retirement homes and care homes on a monthly basis. We have a rotating stock of books and materials that we bring to those who are unable to make it into the library. We also pop up at local events to showcase our materials and services. And we'd like to do more of this to reach our patrons where they are and to reach a different audience than the one that visits the library building. And in conclusion, we just want to leave this thought with you that the Coburg Public Library is an investment in Coburg's community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Before Tammy proceeds with her budget, are there any questions on what she's presented? Great job, and thank you for aligning with our strategic plan and also recognizing and accepting the challenges that you have before you. We appreciate that. Go ahead.
Okay, so as you can see here, we have all the different budget lines for the library. We are asking overall between capital and operating for a total of $932,700. So what you see as grants and transfers, that is the actual operating, and then the other items, the furnace replacement, major repairs, the integrated library system, that is our catalog system, Horizon, that has all our information about our collections and allows people to check books in and out. And then we have computers and printers and furniture. We rotate computers, printers, and furniture every 3 years. It's generally between 4,000 and 5,000 in those, but for the next couple of years, we won't be using those budget lines as we were able to do that this year. So as I said, we are asking for $932,700.
Any members of council have any questions for Tammy? Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My apologies. I did have a question from your presentation, Tammy.
Certainly.
Excuse me. In slide 5, you said there were 7,000 Coburg residents that have a membership. How many memberships does the library have in total?
There is just under the 7,000. I don't have the exact number. So out of all the residents in Coburg, that's the number. When you combine Coburg and Hamilton Township, we're at almost 11,000.
Okay, that was my next question. So there is a substantial amount from the township.
Yes, there is.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Congratulations on 2020 being your 25th anniversary. Just wondering if you have a larger community-based fundraising campaign linked with that anniversary and building milestone?
We certainly do. We'll be doing a capital campaign. It's going to start July 1st and go to December 31st. That represents 25 weeks. We are still working on those details, but the board had some really great ideas last night at our board meeting. But throughout the year, we're doing other fundraising initiatives as well that start right on January 6th. So we're hopeful to raise funds to be used in the library either for collections, some of the shelving that I talked about, so we can improve sight lines and accessibility. So we have a whole plan laid out, yes.
And understand you're still planning. Any idea, do you have a firm fundraising goal, a dollar figure attached to the
Not at this time. That is on our agenda for January. So by January or February at the latest, there will be a dollar amount that we'll be asking the community to help us raise.
Any other questions? Councillor Darling?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tammy, on page 1 of your budget here, you've got the grants of $899,700. Is that all from the town, or is there another source for that? Does the township put money into that as well?
Yes, the township puts money in. So for 2020, let me see here. The township will be contributing $307,000. So it'll be $899,700 plus $307,000.
Plus $307,000.
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
So this is just Coburg's part of the budget.
That's correct. $899,000 is just Coburg.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just wanted to note that you almost made the 1.9, and I really appreciate you working as hard as you did given the challenges that you have. So you're currently at 3.24, and hopefully that will, as we go to deliberations in January, that number will stay, but any further little tweaks that you could make to bring that down would be much appreciated. But we know over the years, Coburg's contribution has increased from, I think, way back in 2001 of about 300,000 to
Yes.
what you've just recently told us. So we've more than tripled our commitment to the library, and given your presentation, we can see why. It is extremely important and a really a valuable part of our community, but a little more tweak would be very much appreciated, but we understand how tough it is to do what you're doing, and I really like the strategic plan of the staffing and reorganizing that so that you can come within the budget that we give you, and I know you work really hard at that. So if there are no other questions from council, anyone from the gallery who wants to bring forward a question? Not seeing anything, so thank you very much, Tammy, and we look forward to having you here again on the 9th. So if council has any additional questions, you can be here to answer those.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, pages 239 is the budget estimates for the Northumberland Art Gallery, and I welcome Linda. Oh, Ken, you're coming forward, both of you. Ken Bradshaw and Linda Casimiro will be presenting the art gallery budget. Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sudan, and good afternoon to all, to yourself and to Mayor Henderson and Councillors Beattie, Burkett, Bureau, Chorley, and Darling. Nice to see everybody here today. It's my pleasure to be here as a Coburg citizen and as a member of the board of the Art Gallery and the chair of its Finance and Audit Committee. In the introduction of the formal ballot of the formal budget will be presented by our executive director, Olinda Casimiro. But as a prelude to her presentation, I wanted to offer my perspective of the gallery's value and its role in the context of all that is Coburg in its largest sense. The process of the recent development of the Cultural Master Plan has revealed vividly the breadth and depth of the cultural resources in Coburg. The plan document, as you all know, identifies 424 cultural resources. This would not exist but for the sustained and essential support of the town, the army of volunteers, and the many citizens and visitors who find engagement, entertainment, and growth by access to these resources in Coburg. The gallery, among the many of these resources that make up this cultural mosaic, is an iconic, historic, symbolic, and eminent element. It has a rather unique status within the town in its relationship to the town, and I'd just like to address that briefly in a minute. Over the 60 years that the gallery has existed and grown, the town of Coburg has demonstrated that it has had an enduring commitment to supporting this important cultural resource. A resource, I must emphasize, that most like-sized Ontario towns do not have. The presence of this public gallery in Coburg, open 6 days a week throughout the year, is a welcoming and continually available invitation to one and all, children, youth, adults, regardless of race, age, or gender, a place to find intellectual stimulation and inspiration, a place to gather a broadening of perspective and understanding by viewing exhibits and attending performances in various artistic disciplines, and a place to explore and develop new skills by participating in art-related hands-on programs. To speak to the uniqueness in relation to the town, the gallery is a community resource, as I've said, available to all. In this aspect, it's very much like the library, and in this aspect, it's very much like the community center. But it's intrinsically different in fairly fundamental ways, and of course you will understand better than I. The library is created by bylaw under a provincial legislation, and a very, very large percentage of its overall revenues are derived from the town. And obviously the CCC, as owned and operated by the town, is financed and directed wholly by the town. So in other and fundamental ways, the gallery is unlike these wholly owned, supported, and or owned facilities because it's a member-based non-profit organization with charitable status and with its own governance structure. A portion only, but significant, at about 60%, if provided at the level we are seeking in this budget submission, it's provided by the town as a rate abatement and as a support of core functions. And Olinda will outline a little bit more about that reference to core functions. So despite that, we have a very significant balance of our budget that is provided by external grants and by internally generated funds. And Olinda will be more specific on the percentages on that. So while the gallery provides services to the community at large in ways similar to the library and the CCC, it does so with an independent direction and a mandate, and with a large part or significant part of its operating costs not borne by the town. Nevertheless, it is manifest that financial support by the town at a significant level of such a community resource as the gallery is vital to its sustainability and growth. I submit that the funding sought is not in excess of that level. Moreover, the level of support from the town is a powerful signal, good or bad, depending on how its level is perceived, to other current and potential funding agencies and organizations. Therefore, whether it is reasonably supported by the town will be a factor affecting the gallery's ability to garner support, particularly from other public bodies, but also from donors in general. Some interesting facts to bear in mind with regard to the gallery in the context of the town. The annual attendance of approximately 11,000 people is equivalent to 55% of the head count of the town. And the requested level of funding, which you know we've put in at $250,000, is approximately $1.20 for each resident. So what is the breadth of the gallery's role and activity? First and foremost, it's the steward of a constantly growing permanent collection of approximately 1,000 pieces of paintings, drawings, prints, photographs, fabric art, and sculpture, built up by the foresighted Coburg citizens over the 60 years, making their collection building actions in their time a privileged view for us of our past, and an enhancement of our perspective on our growth as a community, and a nurturing of aspirations of what it can be. In addition to being a steward, it is an impresario. It's an impresario of a creative space that offers learning and enjoyment, education and leisure activity. In addition to being a steward and an impresario, it is a builder. It is a builder of new audiences by offering events and activities which complement the core mandate, such as author readings, art education, drawing and painting courses for various ages, and in-gallery music and performance, dance performance. In all of these roles carried out by the gallery, improve the quality of life for residents, attract visitors, promote tourism, and drive spending in the town. Properly resourced, the gallery can grow its value as a community resource. Please do not let us lose sight of the opportunity before us in the decision that you are considering today. Thank you. And I'll pass the microphone over to Olinda. Let me check this out of your way. There we are.
Good afternoon. The AGN at 60. We are a, oh, sorry, do I turn this or do you, okay, hold on. There we are. The AGN at 60. We are a public art gallery, the stewards of over 1,000 works of art. In 2019, we added $52,400 of art to our collection. We collect, preserve, present, and interpret works of art. We ignite the power of art, embracing our responsibility to engage and educate our community, contribute to cultural knowledge, and advance creative endeavor. After 60 years, we continue to be a cultural driver, supporting the Cultural Master Plan recently approved by Council. We provide a hub of artistic and cultural energies through inspired educational experiences for all audiences. We are an economic asset to our community and a destination within Victoria Hall, which is designated as a National Historic Site, a museum in a museum. We will welcome 11,000 visitors this year, which is a 10% increase over 2018. Through our publications and exhibitions, we represent Coburg regionally, provincially, and nationally. Currently on the shortlist for an Ontario Association of Art Galleries Catalog Design Award. Our vision is focused on providing superior opportunities for growth and engagement. Our active volunteers contribute over 3,000 hours. They lend us their time, expertise, and energy. They do this by participating in our committees, such as the Gallery Guides, who meet regularly and deliver tours every Saturday at 2 p.m., the AGN Youth Council, which create and collaborate to develop and deliver meaningful art projects, Special Events Committee, Exhibitions Committee, Collections Committee, and of course our volunteers who provide a welcoming reception when you arrive at the AGN. Our 2020 draft budget requests $250,000 from the town of Cobourg, which indicates a 63% contribution to the overall revenue. 24% attained from provincial and federal grants, 8% through AGN services, and 5% through donations and sponsorships. The Town of Coburg grant in the amount of $250,000 is reflected on the expenses as 22% or $54,000 directly to the Town of Coburg for rent and security. 30% or $74,000 towards core operations, and 48% or $122,000 in support of salaries. When we look at our draft 2020 budget, and I'm sorry I didn't realize it would be so difficult for you to see. I hope that you can see it clearer. We have just discussed the revenue portion. I'd like to draw your attention to Note 6. We are hoping to increase our hours of operation to include one evening a week. That is in support of our security fees. This would help us to welcome families to the gallery and to our programming. Currently, we are open Tuesday to Sunday, while 11 to 4 Tuesday to Friday, and 12 to 4 Saturday and Sunday. Note 7 refers to the Restored the Floor program that we would like to have the floor in the gallery replaced. We see this as an accessibility issue, and we will conform to AODA compliance. That is a capital investment project, and we're hoping to partner with the town to make sure that that happens. Note 8 reflects a strategic plan that we will launch in the fall of 2020. It will be a 5-year plan. Note 9 reflects the 12 exhibitions that we host in the gallery, both in the main gallery and the Paul Kane Gallery. The Paul Kane Gallery now features works from our permanent collection, which are very popular and well visited. And finally, Note 10, looking at our 60th anniversary celebrations, it's going to be a big year for the gallery, so and exciting for our institution. The AGN is a community partner. We partner and develop meaningful programs for our community. Rebound Children and Youth Services of Northumberland. This year, through our initiatives in our education department in 2019, we were able to offer art camps in the summer for children from Rebound. The Literacy Network of Durham Region, which reaches into Northumberland County, partnered with the gallery to deliver bibliotherapy sessions. The school boards, both private schools and home schools, we augmented our education programming to accommodate curriculum standards. We engage children, youth, adults through our art programs. We participate in our community, the Cultural Master Plan, the Civic Awards, the Piano Project, the Santa Claus Parade, and of course all the other festivities. Engaging our community today matters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Linda and Ken. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Linda, for your presentation. You stated in your presentation the $48,000 art was added. Was that purchase or was that a donation?
That's specifically donations.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beattie.
Thank you. I have 3 questions, but I'll pause after each one and other members. Thank you very much. My first question is, can you, I believe last year we spoke a little bit, given that we are the Gallery of Northumberland located in Coburg, can you talk a little bit about your plans to go to neighboring municipalities, even if it's a nominal amount, to help with art outreach, engagement, destination development?
Yes, we have begun discussions with the county. That takes time, and strategies are being developed to get to all 6 of the townships. So progress has been made, but we're persevering.
Okay, thank you. Can you break down the 5%? It's wrapped up into donations and sponsorships, and I'm keen, how much of that is earned sponsorships, and of that 5%, how much approximately is fully philanthropic charitable donations?
I would have to do the math to get the actual percentage, but it's about half and half. Sponsorships are coming through our AGN Spotlight fundraiser, which is now in Series 2. Great success with that program, and it's feeding our education initiatives. The donations are primarily through donors who are not only donating gifts of art to the gallery, but are also providing the funds to support those gifts.
And my final one, if I may, I'm glad to see that you're investing in a strategic plan. Can you inform council members what component of that strategic plan over the next 5 years will also be around capacity building and sustainability funding, particularly around a strong annual fundraising program to complement the support from the municipality?
Right. So we are currently going into our year 2 of our 2-year plan, and probably summer and late fall will, actually probably early summer, late fall will begin the strategic plan process. That is on our radar. We would like a 5-year plan reflecting on the needs to build capacity.
Thank you. Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions, if I may, for my understanding. Let me look at my notes. I apologize. When you have insurance, just for my reflection, is that insurance separate to the board, or is that aligned with the Town of Coburg Victoria Hall insurance?
No, that is separate. It is the insurance for the art and the work that's on the floor. Insurance that covers liability and director and liability. Directors, do you know?
Directors and officers.
Yes, directors and officers liability.
And the current collection.
Yep.
Likewise, I know you put professional fees, but I personally would like to see a breakdown if the board were agreeable, because then I can better understand what goes for accounting and perhaps audit, and what then goes for your long-term strategic planning. I would find that helpful. And the last recommendation I'd like to make to the board, I'm wonderful that you presented the budget as you've done today, but I'm always interested in what was your budget before, so I can see a comparison of growth of what's going down, what's the same, what's really a need or focus. And that helps me personally, I'm only speaking for me, to get a better understanding as your budget goes forward. If I may, Chair, my last question, end of year you show a deficit, but I'm making a strong assumption that we have to make our last installment to you, I'm hoping. And if that installment comes in, does that bring you?
No, that
No?
deficit is an accumulated deficit before my time. It was a large deficit, and we've been, for lack of a better word, picking away at it. We are not planning to show a deficit at all this year in 2019.
Any other questions from members of council? I have a couple, as you would expect. You're asking for a $90,000 increase, and as the mayor just mentioned, without any comparables, so that council can look at what you've done with the money we gave you this year. And as you understand, the 160 was basically supplemented with 45,000 from HOLCO, which we're going to try not to do as much of this year, because you may have heard that the HOLCO fund will not be growing, because we're not going to be getting as much due to the reduced interest rate. So as it sits now, the 90,000 increase is basically going from the 115 that you actually did get in cash to the 250. But if I take it from the 160, you're still asking for a 56.25% increase. That has to come down. And I know, Ken, you gave an excellent presentation. We heard you loud and clear. It still has to come down. And my initial figures, if you would take the 160 times the 1.9, brings you at 163, rounding that out to possibly 165. Now, you're still going to have to take the 45,000 for the rent out of that, so it's not much more than what you have this year. But I would appreciate both the comparable figures as we go forward to the January 9th and January 10th, at least 2 weeks before that date, to send to council. We want to give you some money for sure. I doubt it'll be 250. I mean, I can't speak for all of council. If all of council wants to give you 250, you will get 250. But this is a tough budget year, and I'm just really hoping that you work with us so that we can continue the sustainability of the gallery, and maybe a few of those plans can maybe put on hold for 2021 as you grow. And I know by not giving you that amount, you may not grow as fast, but that's life.
Yeah, we are happy to provide a comparable, and we will do
Yeah,
so.
and I'd also like to
Yeah,
see
all of
possibly a budget going forward with the 165, so council has a really good look at what you would do with that amount as opposed to the 250. It's a big difference from the 250 you're asking for. So just an alternate budget, so to speak, and if you could send those to every council member in preparation for our deliberations on the 9th, that would be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess that's it.
I don't see anyone from the gallery that may want to ask an art gallery question. John, you have anything? Okay, we'll move forward then with planning and development. And that's on pages 261 going forward.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to present the Planning Department preliminary budget estimates for Council. I'll apologize in advance if I have a scratchy voice. I'm just dealing with a little bit of a cold, so I'll try and get through this for you. As many of you know, the Planning and Residential section involves myself as director, and we have 2 registered professional planners and 1 heritage planner, as well as an administrative assistant. What's not included in this budget today is the building department budget, which actually falls under protection services, and that will be held 1 week from today. Our complement of staff in the planning and residential section has been the same for at least 10 years, and we're certainly very grateful to have the staff that we do. Planning and residential essentially deals with the corporation's land use planning, heritage preservation, and development program. We administer a number of various policy and regulatory documents, such as the official plan, zoning bylaw, as well as implementation tools like land subdivision, design guidelines, and heritage district plans. We also involve a review of site plan control and such. The planning and residential section acts as a one-window service for all planning and development matters, and so therefore we are the first point of contact for any pre-consultation inquiry or development proposal for the town of Coburg. And the process involves, of course, initial development contact, receipt of applications, circulation, site inspections, evaluation and reporting by staff, regulatory approval, and follow-up and monitoring. At present, our division is dealing with 21 planning applications through 2019 receipt, and this is in addition to over 30 ongoing development projects at various stages in the approval process, and that includes zoning, plans of subdivision, site plan control, official plan amendments, and such. There are many applications that we do have in the system that transpire over a number of years. So we do have applications that date back into the around 2015 and even before, and some carry forward into 2020 and in the future. We also dealt with 24 Committee of Adjustment applications this year, and to date we've issued 67 heritage permit applications. In addition, the division is responsible for carrying out special planning projects such as the Downtown Vitalization CIP, the current Affordable Housing Strategy and Rental Housing CIP that's underway, a public notification engagement review, the Tannery District Master Plan, and the Zoning Bylaw Review, to name a few. We also are involved in policy and legislative reviews that flow down through the province, such as the Provincial Policy Statement, the Growth Plan Review, Bill 108, Planning Act changes, and provincially significant employment zones, to name a few. And this is in addition to our regular day-to-day activities that we undertake on a day-to-day basis, obviously, including service to the public, zoning inquiries, general advice, and inquiries in that nature. So the planning and residential budget is broken down into 3 key sections: planning, Committee of Adjustment, and heritage. And I'll just summarize quickly the items that are new for 2020. What we've done is a reallocation of staffing across those three budgets. And this reflects what is the actual distribution of staff workflow through Planning, Committee of Adjustment, and Heritage. I'll get to that in a second. We're also proposing the addition of one new staff member as well. And this is in light of the fact of the ongoing and increased complexities and comprehensiveness of planning applications from the province, the county, and local municipality. We're also looking at increased workflows that are continually progressing through our department year to year, as well as Planning Act changes in terms of reduced timelines and such that imposes some significant challenges on staff's delivery of services to the public and to the development industry. In addition, the ever-increasing staffing requirements on heritage matters is also presenting some challenges. And just to give you an example, say 10 years ago, it was not uncommon for a planning application to involve maybe one or two reports, maybe a couple of plans, and they could run through the planning application process relatively smoothly. In today's 2019 era of the planning environment, you're looking at approximately 10 to 12 background reports that are submitted with each application, as well as numerous plans and other supporting documents that also need to be run through the planning department as the one window, reviewed, analyzed, and brought forward to council for recommendations. And all of this is happening within reduced timelines, as you're aware, through Bill 108, the Planning Act changes that have recently come through in 2019. So what that has resulted in are some changes to the subtotals of the salaries, wages, and benefits for each budget. So the next slide, as you can see here, from 2019 to 2020, it gives you a salary percentage allocation by department. And just in quick summary, for instance, the heritage, as you can see in 2019, there was only a 50% salary allocation for the heritage planner. There were no other salary allocations for other staff, including myself, planning manager, administrative assistant, development planner, and such. In moving forward in 2020, we're starting to allocate more staff resources to that department, and as such, you can see the increase in total allocation of salaries from for heritage, for instance, from 11% to 23%, and a reduction in, for instance, the planning department from 74% down to 63%. The numbers are fairly similar in terms of the Committee of Adjustment, as there's probably a little less need for staffing reallocation in that budget. So that certainly does result in a reduction in the planning salary allocation, but it does result in a corresponding increase in the heritage budget salary allocation. As you can see, the planning budget allocation for salaries from 2019 to 2020 is actually reduced by just over $16,000. Committee of Adjustment from year over year slightly up $9,000. And as you can certainly see in the heritage side of things, with that staffing reallocation, that has increased by over $73,000. That also includes the new planning position, and that allocation being 9 months of 2020 at just over $49,000. There is also a natural salary adjustment of approximately $17,600, and that results in salary benefit increases and inflation. Of course, with that comes the heritage budget. It is impacted most at $73,724. The overall planning and residential salary increase is $66,751, of which just over $49,000 is that new planning position, which includes salary and benefits. Now to some good news. 2019, we saw quite a stellar year in applications being submitted, And as indicated, some of them are applications which had already been running through the system and were being closed out or receiving final approval, and others were brand new applications that were flowing through the system and are going to be imposing some additional staff time beyond even 2019 into 2020. So planning application revenues are up over approximately 58% from 2018 to just about $152,000. Zoning reports, which are typically lawyers' letters and zoning compliance letters that come through on land transactions, approximately even through year 2019. And Committee of Adjustment has also improved in terms of revenue. We're up 41% from 2018 at $17,325. This next slide is the revenue sheet, and as you can see, our numbers in revenue for year to date are substantial. Grand total of $173,235, which was over the budgeted amount from 2019, which was $85,000. So certainly a good year in terms of revenue, and that will also help in our budgeting. In terms of planning, as indicated, the change in the budget is a negative. It's minus $16,000. That includes 70% of the new planner position, as well as adjustments to existing staff positions. Through our entire material section of the budget, we're really only looking at a change in memberships, training, courses, and conferences of plus $900. All of the other line items throughout that section remain the same. In terms of planning special projects for 2020, we have had the zoning bylaw review on hiatus for a number of years as we had waited for the official plan to be approved by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. That has occurred, and that was in 2017, and a final outstanding appeal was approved in 2018. We've proposed to allocate $10,000 to complete that review process, and that is anticipated to be done in 2020. We're also looking at the town's strategic plan under action number 3 of the partnership pillar, the sustainability master plan, which is anticipated in the strategic plan for 2021 startup, looking at a 3-year budgeting program of $35,000 per year over the 3 years. The funds are anticipated to come through from Northam Reserve. And just one step back on the zoning bylaw review with that $10,000, that is a DC recoverable item under our development charges. Also, a project that has been a little bit on the back burner, again, given workflow and staffing limitations, was the Tannery District Sustainable Master Plan. We actually don't have any money allocated for that project because that was funded by council in previous years, and we're also still due to receive the 50% funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund. This project is anticipated to be completed in year 2020 as well. Also, which is an annual budget allocation from year to year, is the Coburg East community. These are any costs that are incurred by the municipality as a result of development review within the Coburg East community area. These funds are developer recoverable, so they are no net impact on the budget. And finally, the Affordable and Rental Housing Community Improvement Plan. It is a project that we're undertaking in 2019. It was funded under this current year's Affordable Housing Assistance budget by council, and its completion date is anticipated in the spring of 2020. And for total planning for 2020 is $392,370. This is down $15,399 from 2019. If you include the revenue that we're anticipating for 2020 of about $105,000, the net planning decrease is minus $45,399 at $287,370. So that's certainly a good news situation. The next slide here shows our planning operating budget, and I've highlighted some of the key elements within this budget, particularly the zoning bylaw update at the $10,000. That, as I indicated, is a DC recoverable, so it is no net impact on the budget. The sustainability master plan is also identified as year one of a 3-year budgeting process, $35,000 per year, and that is proposed to be recovered through the Northam Reserve. And finally, the development area C recoverable of $20,000 is also highlighted for Council's consideration. I had mentioned the Affordable Housing Assistance CIP. This particular budget item is not actually within the planning and residential budget, but it is a separate budget amount that has been identified for specifically for affordable housing assistance. And it is proposed in 2020 that a total of $250,000 be included within this budget, with $125,000 coming from the Holdco Reserve. This $250,000 includes a pre-commitment of $37,000 a year for 3 years to accommodate Council's approval of financial assistance for the Trinity of Housing Coburg affordable housing project, as well as $21,555 for Habitat for Humanity's project on University Avenue West. And this is all encapsulated under the 2019 Affordable Housing Financial Support. The net, taking those two figures into consideration, the net available funds for affordable housing assistance in 2020 is $191,455. And the next slide here, Madam Chair, is the actual budget sheet for the Affordable Housing Assistance Program. Moving on to Committee of Adjustment, the only increase that has been identified for this budget is the salaries, wages, and benefits. This includes 20% of the new planner position, as well as adjustments to staff salary allocations. Looking at the budget sheet, all of the line items remain the same, including membership subscriptions, training, conferences, and the honorarium proposed for the members of the Committee of Adjustment, who also act as the town's Property Standards Committee, and the Line Fences Committee as well. So the total Committee of Adjustment budget at $82,916, with a $9,000 increase, taking out revenue of $15,000 that we're anticipated to receive in 2020. The net Committee of Adjustment budget would be $67,916, or an increase in just over $4,000. Moving on to the heritage side of things, the total budget impact of salaries, wages, and benefits is additional $73,764. This includes 10% of the new planner position, as well as increased staffing allocations to that department due to additional staffing numbers from planning and Committee of Adjustment budgets. This increase also takes into account a proposed Heritage Conservation District study in 2020. This is rising out of Recommendation 1C of the Heritage Master Plan, short-term recommended actions, as well as Council's Strategic Plan Action Number 1 pillar places. This particular line item does not have an actual recovery. We do not have the amounts that I believe Madam Deputy Mayor, you indicated Holdco. It's getting a little tight. So this number has more of a direct impact on the budget. With respect to the Downtown Vitalization CIP, we're proposing $75,000 similar to 2019. This particular line item would be subject to a Holdco recoverable, and this is as per Council's Strategic Plan Action Number 4 places. And finally, under the heritage budget, we also have an annual reserve contribution of $5,000 for the Committee for Art and Public Spaces. At present, the reserve is just over $21,000, which is certainly very good. It used to be in a deficit situation a number of years ago, and over the years we've been providing annual contributions to help supplement that and move forward with some more art in public places. So yes, the total heritage budget is $173,213, which is an increase of $113,724. And as indicated, that includes the $73,724 salary adjustment, as well as the $40,000 Heritage Conservation District study. I've identified the heritage budget sheet here on the screen, Madam Chair, which does indicate the Heritage District Conservation Plan at $40,000. This is actually being allocated over 2 years, $40,000 per year for this particular study. And secondly, the downtown CIP of $75,000 is identified with a recoverable through the Holdco reserve. So in quick summary, Madam Chair, the key elements of the planning and residential budget are that the total salary, wages, and benefits increase is $66,751. Of that, $49,000 is for the new planner position that we're proposing. $17,698 is existing salary, staff, adjustments, benefits, and inflation. As indicated, the total materials increase is $40,651. That includes the $40,000 Heritage Conservation District study, non-recoverable line item. What is also new and certainly beneficial for our department is a revenue increase of $35,000 over 2019, and resulting in a total planning and residential increase of $72,402. And again, primarily this relates to the new planner position and the Heritage Conservation District study. And final summary, Madam Chair, the total expenditures for the planning and residential is just under $650,000. Total revenues anticipated of $120,000 for a total final planning and residential budget of $528,499. And for Council's review, I have included the planning and residential summary sheet on the board, and you can see the totals that I am referring to. And the addition of the revenue for Planning Committee of Adjustment. Of course, we have no revenue under Heritage, as Heritage permits are free, and the expenditures are shown. And I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions that you or Council may have.
Thank you, Mr. McGlashan, for an excellent presentation. It's wonderful to see how prepared you come to these meetings. Any questions from any members of Council? Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to reiterate the Deputy Mayor's comments that you do come very well prepared. I'm just curious on, you've got the numbers here. Do you got a percentage increase? Did you stay at the 1.9 with all these figures, or where do you stand without me doing some quick math here?
Yes, actually the planning residential summary sheet, if Joanne could please put that up. Yes, unfortunately the increase from 2019 to 2020 with those considerations is just under 16%. If the planner position and the Heritage Conservation District study are not factored into that equation, you're actually looking at a decrease of 3.65%. Okay, taking one of those two items out, you're looking at 5 to 7% increase. So it's a very fine line when you're dealing with those numbers, and the increases by percentage seem like a lot, but I think in terms of the numbers that relatively are not.
Very understandable. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Glenn, as always, as Director, thank you for most informed. I always find you come dutifully prepared for budget discussions. I know you mentioned council's discussion later, what may stay, what may go, based on percentages. The one I want to ask about is, in the past council, we started, as you know, Cooey Park. And right now it seems like it's fallen off completely. And I'm just saying to you, was there any discussion about some degree of completion towards Cooey Park? And if that were the case, then I realize you may have to adjust some other recommended projects. And were there any discussions on that? And for members of council, Cooey Park was that small section on King Street, just behind, for a better word, what I might call 415, which was the old center for the paper. And it's the area the town purchased in behind. We now own, Glenn can confer, but we own probably 80-85% of that land. The plans have been developed, and the idea was to turn that into a parkette called H.W. Cooey Park. So that's what I'm referring to. So we started as the past council with the idea that it would be continual development, but I can see if I look for the next term of council, there isn't any. So could you help me on that one?
Mm-hmm. Certainly, Madam Chair, and you're correct, Mr. Mayor. A number of years ago, the town of Coburg struck an acquisition with the developer of some lands along Tremaine Street to acquire approximately 80% of the former matting factory property for public park and open space purposes. Subsequent to that acquisition, the town embarked on a landscape master plan process for that, and it involves creating a passive interpretive park center in those lands. And my understanding is that the implementation of the park improvements are the responsibility of the Parks Department. And from what I understand through discussions with Ms. Teresa Bayan, that they are proposing to undertake some work on that and also budget some additional funds for incremental improvements to that park. From a planning and residential perspective, the heritage section of our budget in past has allocated some funds to a heritage interpretive display, which will form part of that landscape plan improvement. And that, if I'm not sure if Joanne can pop up the heritage budget sheet, but in 2019, Council approved a budget of $5,000 for the Cooey Park Heritage Interpretive Display. And it's anticipated that that would be supplemented by a $5,000 in-kind donation by Castle Head Homes as part of our agreement of purchase and sale of that land. So certainly our component, our contribution, I guess you could say, has been budgeted and is sitting in a reserve. And the actual implementation of those landscape park improvements will be Parks operation budget and capital.
So, Madam Chair, thank you. So, Councillor Chorley, just a bit of info. If you're already on it, that's great, but just thought I'd raise that point for your information. Thank you, Director McGlashan.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? I have one. The CIP plan, because it is being taken out of HOCO again for $75,000 over 3-4 years, maybe even 5. Maybe if you have a number at the top of your head, what we've actually put into the downtown CIP plan, it is definitely over 400, I believe, and it might be inching closer to 500,000. Is there any, I guess, appetite as we work on the affordable housing CIP, again, with the staffing resources, to maybe put the CIP downtown on hiatus for a year and focus on the affordable housing CIP? We're also going to be asked for a sustainable CIP. We need to focus on one area at a time, I think, and I think we've given the downtown, and I personally would like to see a report come back from those 4 or 5 years, or that 4 or 5,000, as to what benefits we've received from that. Because yes, it is mostly funded by HOCO, but it is at one end or another still coming out of our income from the residents. So any appetite for that? I know that it doesn't affect the tax levy, but it is a focus that we brought forward in the 2019 budget to focus on affordable housing. We don't know where that's going to go, and I would just like to throw that out at you to look at, and maybe when we do our deliberations in January to maybe discuss that. Also, the two items you mentioned as a possibility, thank you, Councillor Darling, to possibly reduce your budget to bring it back in. I mean, your budget's always over or under, the revenues are always over, and that's fabulous. But so no other department has to pay that extra difference. Maybe council could look at the 9-month position. When I'm assuming you're only going to hire that 3 months into 2020.
That's correct.
And the heritage plan. I mean, that's important as well. But those are the two you flagged for a possible reduction in your budget. So again, if council could make a note of that, so when we come to deliberations, if we get to that point, maybe somebody will come in and they'll be 50% under. Yeah, right. So we need to have all those items flagged so that we can come back to you and come back to the Director of Finance at that point and trying to make our budget. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, and I think you've summarized it very well. We've certainly, we're looking and very cognizant of Council's priorities and the number of projects that are underway, and I think we can certainly look at those in more detail, particularly moving forward with other projects, sustainability and others that may crop up for Council. So yes, we will certainly look at that moving forward for January. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Beattie.
If I may, Deputy Chair, just one point of clarification, and maybe for Council to remember, is when planning, and perhaps the Director can elaborate on this further, but the Affordable Housing Community Improvement Program covers affordability, sustainability, accessibility. So the planning staff took that initiative to encompass sustainability in that CIP. So I think that's just something to remember, that it's an inclusive, town-wide CIP program that addresses those fundamental planning principles of affordability, attainability, accessibility, brownfield, and sustainability. I'm not the expert, but I wanted just to clarify that. But maybe I'll ask the Director to clarify anything else. Certainly,
Councillor Beattie, you've summarized it quite well, in that while we were undergoing the RFP for the Affordable Rental Housing CIP, we felt that as a value-added basis that we could add these additional important items, accessibility, sustainability, brownfield, environmental remediation, into that mix, since we're doing a town-wide CIP, and the consulting team that we did select did very proactively provide that within their work plan. So in terms of creating another sustainability CIP, we don't need to do that. We will actually have it within that. So that's one good news story in terms of reducing the number of projects on the go, for sure.
Thanks. Any other questions before we move on? Any questions from the media? Mr. Draper? No? Okay. Next we have general government. Mr. Davies, would you walk us through that, please? And that is on page 13.
Yes, Deputy Mayor. So if we start, the first page under general government that we have in your package is the council budget. It's page 13 on my package, but
let's wait till everybody finds it. It's also on your laptop if you want to find it there. Everybody got it? Good? Okay, go ahead.
All right. So in the first section on that page, to do the salaries and wages and benefits section, just for clarification, we've added a new line in there this year just to highlight the honorarium paid to the two positions of Poet Laureate and the town crier. So those amounts previously would have been included in a mayor's budget down lower in terms of one of those lines. The other item of clarification, as council's aware, the bylaw that was passed earlier this year regarding compensation for members of council was based on budget approval. So for purposes of this budget, what we've done is included the existing wages. We haven't included any increase over and above what they currently are, and just so that you can see where they are now, and then we will provide clarification as to what that increase would add if it gets approved by council. So I think that's was the direction that Deputy Mayor asked that we present it that way. So that's why it's not a significant increase from 2019 to 2020. If you move down into the second block of the budget, the materials budget, a couple of things to highlight. One line about the fourth line down, I believe it is account 1211, citizen engagement. That was the bang the table item. Last year, we've moved that now to the communications budget, so that's included in a page, a couple budget sections down. So that's the reason that that line's gone to zero. And moving down into the special project section, by way of highlight, you'll see there's a special project in there to do with carpet replacement. That's carpet replacement in the council chambers here. That's an item that's been included for the last few years in the budget, and this year we've brought it back again. It hasn't been approved in the past. The other special project of significance is the organizational or service delivery review. That's in the budget at $60,000, and you'll see an offsetting line just near the bottom of $60,000 coming from the Building Efficiencies Fund to offset that. So that, based on that, that would actually at this point show a slight decrease in this budget sheet year over year. Are there any questions?
We'll go page by page on this one because it's pretty complex. Any questions? Just put your hands up if you have any before we flip the pages. I don't see. Oh, Councillor Chorley.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question about the line public relations. That number in 2019 has considerably exceeded the budget for 2019. Could we just have a line of explanation about that?
I don't have an explanation for the actual numbers at this point, no.
I had that one flagged too. Maybe you can come up with that and let council know as we proceed. Thanks.
If there are no further questions, then we'll move to the next section, which is the administration CAO line budget. Again, very consistent, really no little change in this budget from year over year. Nothing to highlight, really.
Any questions on this page? No? Okay, go ahead, Mr. David.
That should bring you to the communications department budget. I'm not sure if Ashley's still here. I know I think she had to leave at some point, so I have to look behind me. She's here. So Ashley, if you want to come up and just lead council through this section.
So I'm pleased to be here tonight presenting the communications budget that resides under general government. Just in a nutshell, the communication department, in my humble opinion, plays a critical role within any corporation. Communications is at the center of strategic image positioning that drives organizational confidence in the eyes and minds of our citizens. With a direct report into the CAO and working closely with the Mayor and Council at hand, the department also supports all divisions and departments within the town of Coburg and handles internal and external communications for the town, media relations, corporate branding, public relations, and special projects that come in as well, such as Rogers Hometown Hockey and the creation and inception of the Venture 13 Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. Since the department's inception in 2012, the department has grown. Let me take you just through a brief history. So in 2012, when I onboarded, we broke into the social media realm, launching Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram and YouTube. We have a strong reputation online, and that means something in this world. And we actively communicate through these free and useful resources. Our Facebook online presence alone has now reached over 6,000 followers. Is that significant? Yes, it is. We beat out any municipal corporate and tourism channels found within the county. So we have a strong following, meaning that our messaging is getting out there and people are listening. In 2014, we launched a brand new 400-plus page website offering a lot of information that matters most to citizens. The website is one of the most visited sites in the town of Coburg, providing up-to-date information and content to citizens, and we're constantly staying ahead of the technology game, and that's a huge mandate for us. On top of a website launch, we also launched an intranet. This is an online portal that's available to our employees, providing access to information at their fingertips. In 2016, we revised the homepage to keep up with technology. We added in a free community calendar that's accessed by our entire community. It helps publicize their events at no cost. Later in 2016, we launched our council live streaming through our YouTube channel. With the sake of some sound issues, it's effectively delivering another alternative to our citizens who cannot physically attend our council meetings, all within a free format. In 2017, the department played a critical role in the creation and success of the Venture 13 Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. We continue to offer communication and marketing support, sitting on the Marketing and Communications Committee, and myself as a board member, recognizing the importance of this critical partnership with the Venture 13 anchor tenants. In 2019, recognizing the importance of public engagement, it continues to grow, and the importance of public engagement continues to grow as well. Collecting feedback from our citizens is important, so we launched with Bang the Table, our online public engagement platform. Engage Cobourg has been extremely successful. We've launched a lot of projects to date: the Waterfront Plan, East Pier and Campground, the Cultural Master Plan, the Taxi Cab Bylaw, and currently the 2020 budget. We are now actively working on the launch of the Affordable and Rental Housing CIP that's underway with the Planning Department. This online platform is working hard to instill public confidence and to ensure that we are all listening to our community. In 2019, with thanks to Council, we added a full-time communications coordinator to the department. We hired this individual for two specific goals: to help with the many tactical components within the department so I myself could focus on strategy, and someone who had graphic design experience. Why? Because the department recognized the need to cut design costs down. Since the coordinator began, she's worked on a lot of projects for us. She's designed a 6-foot sign for the town and the Coburg Cougars, which sits outside the CCC. She's put together tons of posters, handouts, web material, and has worked on many materials across all divisions and all departments in-house, where they would normally source externally. The communications department in the past outsourced the ad block, for example, and other marketing material, and can now, with this full-time addition, bring costs down while maintaining the integrity of the town of Coburg's brand. We will and should continue to utilize this in-house opportunity to bring costs down for our taxpayers. So in summary, I will quickly go over what is new for 2020 in the communications budget. The public engagement cost, as you have just heard, has moved from the mayor's budget over to the communications budget, where you will see an increase in the software maintenance line item. So that's at $32,400 right now. The cost for the Bang the Table online platform every year is $12,000 annually. Within the same software maintenance line item, you will see an annual fee of $900 to utilize the Adobe Creative Cloud software. That software, it's professional design software that will allow our communications department and specifically the coordinator to design in-house and free of charge fantastic and well-branded marketing and communication material. Now, due to the addition of the communications coordinator and the addition of the public engagement software Bang the Table, I do have good news. Previously, before the coordinator was hired, I was spending roughly $12,000 a year outsourcing just for the ad blocks for them to be put together by a graphic designer. I am confident to move forward and cut $12,000 out of my advertising and promotions line item, which will in turn, I feel, balance the cost of the additional Bang the Table software that sits at $12,000, if that's acceptable to council. Another adjustment is the conference line item, which has doubled. I strongly believe in education and continual growth and would like to see my coordinator attending the Municipal Communications Conference. It's the best conference out there for municipal communicators. It comes once a year. It's usually in Toronto, and I'd like her to attend with myself. One other new line item in the communications budget includes printing. So this will help us develop the in-house marketing and communication material. However, we need to print some of these materials, and that would go through the communications department. Also listed on the strategic plan, if we go back to that, is the creation of a communications strategy, which will be done in-house without the use of a consultant free. I also have no additional special projects at this time requiring cost. So thank you, and that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions by members of council? Councillor Charlie?
Thank you for your presentation, Ashley. Just, you mentioned cutting the advertising and promotions budget. You said 12,000?
12,000.
So currently the number is 30,900, so you're saying that would come down 12,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also flagged that when you mentioned that. Why did you not put that reduced amount in your budget so it wasn't 20% over last year? 27% over last year.
Yes, I just thought of that actually now as I was putting together my notes, to be honest. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from members of council? I do have one more.
Sure.
Last year when you really put together your plea and successfully for a communications coordinator, it was my hope, and you've alluded to that, that you saved some funds that would have normally gone to outsourcing. The printing budget last year basically was, well, $121, but you hadn't put anything. Where were we printing? Was that basically invoiced from third-party sources? Is that why we're not seeing anything in your budget?
Yes, yeah. Most and all of my printing, I would outsource to the departments that I would be working with. So for example, planning and development, when we're pushing through the affordable housing CIP, all the printing charges would go over to the department. So because now the communications department is working on a lot of projects in-house, especially public engagement, we require a little bit of printing costs to print out materials for ourselves.
Okay. Now, with this 27% increase, you did offset the hometown hockey, 15,000, with the 10,000 that you've now put into the council's budget. So that's almost a wash. But is there any place else that you can find some efficiencies? Because that's a lot higher than we'd expected, and we do need that to come down a little bit, or more than a little bit. I'm just saying, is there anything else that you can think of that over the course of the next month, as we come back, including the advertising line item that Councillor Chorley brought up? Because it was our hope last year that we would save some money from outsourcing from all the divisions, and I know you do work with all the divisions,
Yes.
especially when it comes to, I know that tourism and community services still uses a lot of outsourcing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way we can bring that through coordination with them in-house with your new coordinator?
Yeah.
That's a big ticket item. We do spend a lot of money there.
It is absolutely a big ticket item, and I think if I could sit down and speak with that division and look at the workload that our communications coordinator currently has, I'm sure that we could cut costs and bring things in-house.
I think if I can just jump in, Deputy Mayor, just one thing to keep in mind with this budget is that last year when that new position was created, it was created a half year because it didn't start till the 1st of July. So that's an automatic increase of a significant dollar amount now, because now we're putting in for the first time a full year position. So plus the hometown hockey as a special project. So again, the purpose of today's sessions are to present these sort of preliminary budgets. I would assume and expect that all of these budget sheets we're going to go back once we're finished next Thursday going through the first round, and we're expecting all departments to work with their council coordinators and to work with finance to look at how we can fine-tune these now. So all of those, as opposed to we're not trying to make cuts today, but people are going to go away and work on them for sure.
I was just putting in some gentle reminders, but thank you for that. And thank you, Ashley. Any other questions for Ashley? No? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor, the next section in the general government would be the clerk's department, and we'll ask the clerk to speak to that budget.
Thank you, so Madam Chair. I'll be brief in my explanation from the clerk's department. I just want to let you know there's some subsequent presentation attached to the agenda. Basically what that does is just highlight some stats and some of the information and the day-to-day operations of the clerk's department. It's also to recognize my staff of all the hard work and dedication they do day in, day out in the clerk's office. As everyone's aware, clerk's department is a statutory officer position, so there's many duties and responsibilities that we have in that department that we have to complete in and day out. So the dedicated staff in there, I just wanted to bring that attention, not just to council, but also to the public. Not everyone understands what the clerk's department does and how efficient they are, and how well they make me look when I come in here on Mondays. So I just want to make mention of that. So that's basically what that is for, just to elaborate a little bit on some statistics. I won't dwell much on this revenue side of it. We are pretty much hitting everything from 2019 to now from last year. The only thing I'll mention is that the taxi licenses have come down, but we do have another round of licensing for our drivers here soon. There's not as many driver licenses as has been in the past. Obviously, we are aware of some of the difficulties that we have right now in our taxis within the town, and we are currently going to we're reviewing that right now, and we expect to have a review of the citizens' engagement as well as licensing opportunities and some innovative ideas bring forward in the new year. So that's going to make sure we understand that. Also, just to let you know, we are entering to a council just passed the implementation of a DocuPet service, which is an online database for individuals to license their pets. So we're hoping that it'd be a good intake on that as well, putting people at their home in their computer instead of coming in and doing an archaic form. So now we're doing all of online innovative, so we hopefully will generate a little bit more revenue for that. We don't use that as a revenue tool, but we use it for compliance base, as well as council just went through a muzzle order, restraint order. So we don't see it as revenue generation, but we do see it as a compliance base, those fines as well, to make sure that we are protecting all of our citizens going through that process effectively. So that's the purpose of that. One new one you'll see is the FOI and the Commissioner of Oaths section, which this was originally, it has been in the past in the council budget for revenues, but the town of Coburg, as you're aware and you see in the stats, this year we had a high increase of FOI. We're about almost 23 requests this year. We average about 5 or 6. One large request for an FOI service as well, where we actually did 2 months of research and information on that, which is another statutory under the MFI PPA Act, and we requested some statutory fees related to some FOI requests there. So that's why that line will be a little bit higher than usual.
Any questions for Mr. Larmer before we move on? Councillor Charlie?
Just a quick question about dog tags and fines. I see in 2019 you anticipated a revenue of around 12,000, and at the moment we're at about half of that. Are you anticipating more coming in before the end of the year?
No, we're not anticipating any new ones. Right now we're transitioning into the online, the January 1st deadline for our new launch for the new innovative system. So we've actually suspended licenses currently. We're still allowing people to register because we want that compliance piece to make sure dogs are registered, but we're doing an intake in January as well, and we're hoping that we can meet an additional threshold for that, but unfortunately that's going to stay the same this year. We did have a dog tag seller that did go door to door. Unfortunately we had a bit of an incident, so we had to suspend that, so maybe that's probably why the reason's down. Other than that, also animal control, which is our joint animal control the board of management, they have traditionally also sell dog tags for us, and their numbers were quite down this year as well. So not sure that could be playing a factor as well.
Okay, don't see any questions. Can move on.
I'll just quickly highlight this section of it. You'll see that there's obviously an increase in the salaries and wages, and as indicated in one of my last slides on our on my slideshow that I attached as just a reference piece as part of the budget submission tonight is the accessibility coordinator. So part of council's resolution from the strategic plan was, part of the work plan for staff was to hire a 12-month contract for accessibility for the town. Basically what this position was to accomplish is all of action number 5 under the council strategic plan under people. So what this is to do is to actually pass and submit to council a feasible and actual formal accessibility plan for the town of Cobourg to achieve the AOD initiatives by compliance for 2025. There's a number of policies and some integrated accessibility standard policies that we need to have updated, as well as a corporate-wide accessibility audit too, not just on capital, but also operations policy and how we deal with our accessible community. So as council made that a strategic plan, what we're suggesting, and part of the actual strategic plan is to hire an accessibility coordinator, which would be through the clerk's department for that. The only additional item which I will speak about is our records management modernization plan. You'll see that I have also put into the agenda for your information purposes, part of the budget throughout, is consideration on the corporate-wide records modernization plan. And in this, what the clerk's department is requesting is that council consider using some of the building efficiencies funding for our records information modernization plan for the town of Coburg. And this is a corporate-wide initiative. And what this is to deliver efficiencies, effectiveness, and accessibility and open government across the corporation, not just for staff, but it will help staff, but also for the public as well. So what I just mentioned, FOIs, some of these requests took a few months. In a nutshell, a records information modernization plan and electronic documents. Electronic program would help achieve instant, maybe 2 weeks rather than 2 months. So that's something that you'll see. It's a long report, but basically what it comes down to is council this year approved $25,000 to start the review of it. Part of the municipal act is that we do have an effective and efficient program to maintaining our life cycle and corporate records retention, and that falls to the clerk's department. So what we have noticed is that we do have a need to modernize that, not just in the clerk's office, but across the corporation. And in January, council is going to be hit with a lot of policies, a retention schedule, a lot of innovative information governance policies as well. So what we're hoping to do is use some of that efficiency funding to fund the START investigation of electronic records document information system. And this is going to be in conjunction with our IT department. Like I said, it's corporate-wide. The uptake from currently within the corporation is very good. You've seen some reports go forward. I've mentioned a little bit in here. We've done a lot of preliminary work so far, and a lot of the departments, divisions, and directors are happy to see this come through. It's, as I said in the financial part of it, this isn't something that normally will be always accepted by council, as it's not a fancy new road or a fancy new dump truck or a snow plow. So you're not going to see the effects of it in front of your face, but staff, the public will see the long-term effects of it and towards an open government system where records can be easily accessible to everyone, as well as for future generations they would be able to be managed effectively and be well taken care of through their entire life cycle. Also, what it does is help us on a risk management part of view, that we can easily find records when we need to. And also, we destroy them effectively as per legislative requirements as well. So this is not a 1 year, 1 month thing. This is a long-term goal, and this is continuous. So it needs buy-in from the whole corporation, and we're looking at really good internally on this. So now we need the financial support to go forward, and that from council. So that's just for information, and most of it's as described in the report, as well as there's a breakdown on the yearly cycle of how we're going to do this, 6 to 1.5 years, 1.5 to 2 years. So I've put that plan in place as well, too, just to give council understanding that it's not an overnight process.
Any questions to date? No. Go ahead.
Is that it? Yeah, I would just, to what Mr. Larmer said, I would just add, when you're looking at the salaries and wages line at the top, as he indicated, there is a 12-month contract position in there for an accessibility coordinator. That's been partially offset by a change in the allocation of the bylaw enforcement officer. So the bylaw enforcement officer, if you look in prior year's budget, was 50% to the clerk's department. It's been determined that that position is spending more time on actual bylaw enforcement matters than clerks-related activities, so that percentage has been reduced to 25% in this budget. So that's why you see the change. That change, obviously, from 50 to 25 for the bylaw officer does not fully offset that 12-month accessibility coordinator position, but it does partially offset that. Okay.
Is that it for you? Yeah. Okay. Mayor Henderson?
I'm going to make a statement, not a question, just for council's awareness. This is something, since I first arrived in council, I'm starting my 9th year, we were encouraging the development of a centralized system for all the right reasons for the town of Coburg. So my point from me is we've waited 8 years and bits and pieces, but we really are at a crossroads. We really do need to develop. We're no longer a small, sleepy town. We're really a very progressive town, in fact, and I highly support this. I know it comes with big dollars, and I know it's something we can't see. As the clerk said, it's not the car, it's not the truck. I can't see the field, I can't see the water. But I can tell you, having been here my 9th year, boy, do we need this to coordinate all our systems, and not only just the systems, but the training of our individuals, because at the end of the day, larger municipalities are already there, and for obvious reason, they're larger municipalities. But they're at a point now, if I want information as a citizen, I go press no more than 3 buttons, and traditionally, the information's up my hand. For the most part, we can't do that in the town of Coburg. But if we go this route over time, I see it as a real service delivery model, not just for us and for staff and the efficiencies and effectiveness that will come with staff training, but also for the public. So I'm hoping as you reflect, you might give this, I hope, some deep consideration.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. And I think all of council would probably agree with that, because we know how hard the clerk's department works. And it makes the decision an awful lot easier when we have Building Efficiencies Fund to go to fund this. Finding that kind of money elsewhere would have been really difficult, but we've got the funds in the bank to pay for it. So I think that's a really good thing as we go forward. Mr. Davey, are you going to continue?
Yes, Deputy Mayor. So the next section would be the Finance Department. You can see there are no changes in terms of salaries and benefits in terms of staff. In the second section of the materials, again, just carrying on from prior years. Nothing really to highlight there. And if you move to the bottom section, which is the line that's noted special project upgrade to Vailtech security, if you recall way back to the initial report, again to do with the Building Efficiencies Fund, one of the projects submitted by the Finance Department was to move the tax software system over to the Great Plains platform to be consistent with the rest of our financial package. That, I believe, if I recall at the time, had a price tag of approximately $150,000. Since that time, staff have investigated methods of upgrading our existing Vailtech system that staff are very happy working with. And this item of $17,000 basically has been determined as the cost to do that upgrade. And that would improve not only the software itself, but allow us to get it off of a server and up to a more current server. So the security, that's why it's noted as a security issue as well. It would help there. So we're quite pleased and think that $17,000 is much better than the previous $150,000 that we were talking about.
Any questions for Mr. Davey? Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Davey, the only question I have, because I know things can be moved, when it says the special project upgrade to Vailtech security, is that really directly connected to finance, or is that something that could go on the IT budget?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, through you to His Worship. We're showing it here because it's an upgrade to the Vailtech software program, which is our program that we use to run the property tax program. So it's part of finance. It just also enhances, it makes that software much more secure.
And I'm guessing because it's an upgrade and not a new item, as the previous would have been taken out of the Building Efficiencies Fund, you're taking it out of the tax levy.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, that's how we're showing it now. Again, that's a possibility that we may go back and as we try to fine tune these budgets, say, well, you know, maybe perhaps once we see what other items are actually being proposed and coming out of that building efficiencies, we may go back and visit that for this line as well.
Any other questions before we move on? No, go ahead.
All right, the next section then would be information technology. Council is aware, and I think there's been numerous discussions over the terms of the importance of IT. Mr. Larmer's referred to it in the records management system and the importance of that. And again, we've taken steps in recent years to improve our security, our firewalls, all of our security features. that's why you'll see a continued increase in the IT budget. Again, you can see in terms of the top section, the salaries line, there's no significant changes there. When we move down into the next section, under the materials, you'll see that's where we had allocated in the 2019 budget the $40,000 for the IT strat plan. That's an ongoing project. And so you'll see, obviously, no further funds in 2020 for that special project. So that's the reason that the total in that section has dropped significantly from 41 to 7,100, 41,000 to 7,100. If you, moving down to the next section under contracted services, if you refer to the line, obviously the web security enhancement contract, you'll see that's in the notes section of this budget. It's detailed there exactly what makes up that 166,200, and not a slight increase from last year. The support contract and the technical support contract again are the same in total as what they were last year. And the bottom section, you'll see a new line item for our cyber insurance of $6,500. That was added during 2019. The other significant item is that the amount of the transfer back out of the computer reserve to cover off some of these expenses. Last year we took $40,000 out to cover the IT strat plan. This year we're saying taking out $6,000 from that reserve.
Any questions? Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Davey, just from my understanding, the insurance, I know there's different levels. Is this third-party insurance?
Yes, this is separate from our general comprehensive insurance contract that we just renewed at the end of, or at the back at the end of October. This is a specific policy that we took out during 2019. It renews in August, and this was the premium for just this specific new cyber insurance.
The reason I'm asking a subsequent question, because I know what the county did in third party for a certain fee, and theirs was $18,000. So I don't know if they just have more, they're larger, they could be. So I'm just wondering, how did we get it for 6.5? So if we did, that's a great deal. If I may ask a subsequent question, I see technical support contract down for 12,000, but personally I would like to see more information on that, because above we have support contract with SimNet Technologies, who does just an amazing job for town consistently, and I just like to understand the difference between support contract and technical support contract, if I could.
Yeah, it's basically just the it's just to separate out the amount that we're paying to SimNet from the amount that we're paying to any other contractors to do with support. So any other materials or items that are required during the year, that's why. And you'll look in total, it's still the same as what the $36,000 in total was last year. So we just tried to provide a little more detail there this year.
Okay, I'm a bit confused, but I know what a great job SimNet does. They've been with us for a long time. They're very proficient. Could they not themselves handle that under the efficiency model, because they do handle a large portion of our IT? I'm just wondering, like, if we already have a company that we know is reputable, has a professional standard. When I met them at the conference in Niagara Falls, they were up on everything that I'm aware of. So my question is, why would we go to somebody else?
Well, between now and when we come back in January, I'll get you some more details on that.
I'd also flag that, so I'd appreciate that clarification. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mr. Davey.
Then we would move to the Victoria Hall budget itself. You can see under the top section of the budget, really the only increase in the salaries and wages line, I believe, is that we do have a summer student that comes, and we've extended last year's budget. We didn't leave quite enough hours to have them here for the whole year, so I think we've extended that budget to have a full 16-week amount. Otherwise, there's no other changes there. Obviously, some of the bigger items there include like the amount for the utilities budget. So again, we've increased that based on what we expect the actuals for 2019 to come in closer to. Building maintenance, again, as I'm often told by staff, the building is getting to an age again where there's more and more maintenance required to replace, to keep things operational. So we've increased, or we've kept that, I guess, at 65,000. I don't see anything else in that section that's to highlight.
Any questions on this page? Oh, Mayor Henderson?
Yeah, I hope I'm on the right page. Am I on 30? Am I on 36? 30? Am I on the right page?
36.
Did you speak to 37, or is that separate?
I think we're just stopping here for a moment, then we'll go to
Okay,
37.
then I have no questions. Thank you.
Just one for you, Mr. Davey. You mentioned the utility costs. That's primarily the main reason that you're up a little higher than you need to be for this year. And I guess, you've budgeted, how much do we got here? 131 year to date, and you're expecting 175? It's that big a difference?
Yes, there's some, there's always a lag in the bills coming in, and then the latter part of the year are obviously more utilities required.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Charlie?
My question was about the building maintenance. I'm just wondering if that budget is going to be realistic, because there was quite a bit more spent in 2018 and 2019.
Yes, I think part of the reason for keeping that budget the same is I think there was a couple of significant items, I can't recall now, but there was a couple of significant items that happened in 2019 that we don't expect to happen again. So turning to the next page, again, this is sort of the other piece of the building maintenance, is the line item that we call system contracts repairs. And that one, again, you'll see significant expenditures over and above the budget from last year. So we have increased the budget to 69.5 this year, and that total is also highlighted in the on the notes section where the 69.5 comes from, the various systems that are being included there. And that was all I had to.
Any questions? Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Davey, I know on the bottom it says there's a note that to create a new account for transfer to reserve. I can understand why, because I see it's at a deficit that's accumulated over time. Would you have a recommendation coming forward how we would best address that in January?
Yes, Your Worship. Actually, that number, the reason that that's a negative number is there that because Council may recall that when some of those larger building maintenance items occurred early in 2019, we actually moved some funding. There was a Council resolution to move some funding from I believe it was the market building to offset some of those expenses. So that's what that credit's about. So, but it is a valid point that we really don't have a reserve to speak of for future repairs to Victoria Hall. There were times in prior years where that item was considered and brought forward, and then in terms of budget cuts, it never seemed to really make the cut that we would start to build up a reserve, but that is something that should be given serious consideration moving forward as part of an asset management plan for this building, yes.
And based on your comment, thank you. I think it's a very accurate comment, and the fact that I know we all love this building, as too, I think every citizen in Coburg and visitor, so perhaps Deputy Mayor, as part of general government, you could put that on your list, because I think it'd be important for us to develop something in the future, because my answer is, I just don't mean Victoria Hall. I call it the Victoria Square, because that to me it can mean involve Victoria Hall, the fire hall, or the market building, because it does meet a Canadian National Heritage standard. Maybe it would be wise for us to see what we could do in the future to, as Mr. Davey indicated, to build a reserve just in case we get those unexpected special surprises.
Excellent idea. For Mr. Davey? Okay, move ahead.
Okay, the next section then would be on page 41, which is the section referred to as financial. This is a page that really includes sort of a whole grouping of sort of other expenses that really don't seem to fit under any other category, so they land on this page. You'll note, starting at the top, we have legal fees. We have $25,000 in the budget for general legal fees. In prior years, we've started to add a couple other line categories just to break out expenses to do with both ombudsman complaints and integrity commissioner issues. So those, the $6,000 for ombudsman is the same as last year. We've added a new line, $25,000 for integrity commissioner on this page.
Can I just ask, with the 2019 year-to-date of $45,546 for legal fees, and yet you're still carrying forward with the $25,000 in the 2019 budget, do you anticipate a bump up again this year for that, for legal fees, or is that was a one-off?
Legal fees are one of those items that's very hard to really predict what you're going to get into, but that 25 is a figure that we've carried sort of historically. You'll see the liability insurance line. I would point out the 2019 year-to-date figure of $1.4 million in that category. That's a combination of all of the insurance expense lands in that account until we get the breakdown from the insurance company, and so that'll be journaled out of there. The other thing is, of course, that we have a prepaid that was set up at the end of 2018, and that gets reversed into this account until we set up 2019 prepaid at the end of the year. Moving down to the bottom section, you'll see under the various transfers to reserves, we've adjusted the holdco one to include the new interest amount of $260,400 as opposed to the prior figure of $507,500, as well as anticipating a $150,000 dividend from holdco. And we're showing the federal gas tax. $600,000 coming in and $600,000 going out to the reserve. Again, you'll note that the number for 2019 is higher. That was because the program announced there was a doubling of the federal gas tax, for 2019. So we just now, as of this week, I believe, received the second part of that. So.
Any questions on this page? Go ahead.
Okay, should take us to page 43, which is the personnel budget. And without looking over my shoulder, I know that the human resource manager is here to speak to this one.
So the human resources budget has remained fairly stable from the 2019 budget for the 2020 budget request. The one addition in payroll and salaries is a request out of the Building Efficiencies Fund for a 12-month contract for an employee to support our training and development policies, conduct training assessments, ergonomic assessments, which was brought forth from a Ministry of Labor initiative, and through that review we've identified that it's not only for public works departments but for across town departments to gain a handle on department-specific training and how that's being tracked and assessed and assigned. Further to that, you'll notice further down the page a special project for non-union job evaluation pay equity plan of $175,000. There is a detailed report coming to you Monday, November 25th for closed session, where the consultant will be present and present the information related to that. The amount is for recommendations from the report from the consultant. The consultant was approved in the 2019 budget, so this is phase 2. Health and safety on the next section also remains stable with no significant changes.
And if I could just add to what to Melissa's comments, you'll recall again under the building efficiencies report that came earlier in the year, there was an item for health and safety assistant, and that was just again to be a one-of contract, and that's why you'll see the recoveries on the bottom of this page. So that's built into the salary page, salary total. And then there's a recovery of 54,405 would be the ask to come out of the building efficiencies.
That's for the one-year contract you just mentioned?
Correct.
Now the 175, you anticipating that coming right out of the tax levy?
Correct.
That's not fun. Thank you. Any other questions for Melissa on this page? Or did you have more to talk about?
No, there are more detailed discussions in the closed session,
yes.
For sure.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, go ahead.
So I think that Melissa also spoke to the health and safety, which is the next page, the next budget section there. That's the 12,850. So exactly no change from the prior year. And that should take us to the end of the general government operating, unless there's any other questions.
I see health and safety here. Is that?
That's what we're saying.
That's what you were just mentioning.
Right. Okay. So then we would move to the general government capital sheets and just do a quick run through of the capital projects that are have been put on the table at this point for consideration.
Does everybody have those? That's page 3 of the capital. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the first page under the capital would be the normal IT, the computerization line, the 35,000. That has not really changed in recent years. Turning the page, the next capital project is a new server. It's noted here that is a requirement to run the software that's noted there. You'll see that the IT supervisor is listed one for 2021 and a further one for 2022. The third page is a project to replace the existing microphones that we have here in the council chambers, to move away from the wireless, and this would actually replace the microphones, hardwire them in, As you'll note, one of the differences you note is that the gooseneck microphone that's behind me, that members of the gallery speak into, has really never given us any problems. It's hardwired in. The problems that we usually have with the sound system come from the wireless mics, so that's we believe they're at their end of their life, and that's the purpose of this project.
I don't think anybody will argue with that one.
The next project is the next page is a project that's been denoted for 2021. Would be a project for software to actually take over doing this budgeting process that we're doing, and something that could be a little easier integrated with our Great Plains financial software. To date, Joanne Taylor has done a great job with our existing software, but it is one massive giant Excel spreadsheet basically at this point, and it requires a lot of manipulation on her part to move data back and forth from the financial software into this Excel spreadsheet, and so that's what this project is for. The next project is the market building roof replacement. Significant dollars involved here. The estimate is $235,000 to replace that roof on the market building with the cedar shakes.
Just a quick question there. I know that the cost of the portico at the front also will have to be retendered this year, and that I think was $65,000 last year's capital budget, and some of the costs were coming in at $160,000 up to $300,000. Can we do both? And the second part of that, is there any heritage grants that we can apply because it is a heritage building?
I'm not aware of any grants for this particular project, but we can speak to that when we get to the sandstone repairs on Victoria Hall.
Mayor Henderson?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Davey, perhaps. I don't know the full status of Trinity, but I know they're pretty much as old as church as we are. I can't say they're on the Ontario Heritage Trust because I know that could be a different answer. But when they went to new material for the cost of being told they had to do cedar, they possibly just couldn't do it. It was too cost prohibited. But they did get approval to put on a very high-end roofing material. If you were to walk on the street and look up, yes, it is not cedar, but you can certainly well within the heritage style and has a long lifespan. And my understanding, it was about half the price of the other, and they got approval for that. So I'm just wondering if you can make a follow-up. Again, I understand the difference if they're not Ontario Heritage Trust, but I'm just wondering, I know their church has to be close or older than Victoria Hall and the market building. So if they were able to get some leeway, I guess what I'm asking, is there any other option that may be available to you? I don't have that answer, but I use that as the most recent example.
Yes, so both on this project and the page that follows, which is the roof for Dresser House, both of those projects we will certainly be working with our roofing consultant on what options are available, and then we'll be providing those to both Ontario Heritage Trust and to our heritage planner to make sure that we get a material that's acceptable and most economical as well.
So am I to understand that both of these are coming out of the tax levy, that we have no infrastructure reserves at all to take either of these out of?
Well, at this point, we haven't assigned really reserves to some of these projects or any other possible sources of revenue. We're really just highlighting the project, and again, we're going to have to go back and look and prioritize and get input back as to which projects are highest priority and and come up with some possible sources of funding.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So then the next project, the next page would be the Dresser House roof. So again, that was an item that was in last year's budget, was deferred, put off. So again, that's another item that we're bringing back for consideration this year. Now that's one that I can tell you because we did ask the consultant. There was another product similar to another material that could possibly be used other than the cedar shakes for that roof. Again, it was similar in cost, however. The other option that was put forward was if there were asphalt shingles, you know, it could probably be done for $30,000 or $40,000 if that proved to be acceptable to the heritage people. So, because it is a designated building. The next page is $40,000. That's been identified as a potential project for the heating system at the 2nd Street Fire Hall. So again, an issue of a system that's coming close to end of life, and so we've added a page in potential project for this year. The next page is the plaster work on the back stairs of Victoria Hall, just outside this room, both on this side and the other side. Very noticeable. Again, it's an item that's been in prior years' capital budgets and has not proceeded. So that's what that one's about. The next page is the one we referred to earlier, the sandstone work at the front entrance of Victoria Hall. For purpose of this budget, we've shown $270,000 as the projected cost. We're showing we have a commitment for the Victoria Hall volunteers for $20,000 of funding. They're quite happy to contribute to that project. Again, big thank you out to the Heritage Department and Mr. Franklin, who worked on an application in recent days to Parks Canada for a potential grant of up to $100,000 for this. So that has been submitted, and we'll await to see what response we get from them. But it was a lot of work to pull that together and make that submission. The next project has to do with our elevator pits. So as you know, there's 2 elevators in Victoria Hall. We refer to them as the east and the west elevators. We're having issues with water infiltrating into the bottom of those pits, and of course that can do a lot of damage because of corrosion. We're partially blaming that again on the high water tables and the high water level coming in. So this is an anticipated cost to rectify that problem. It's an expensive project, but the alternative to replacing elevators is would be a much more massive project. So the next couple of pages are all ones to do with 2021 or 2022. You'll remember we started with the replacing of the sprinkler heads in the concert hall itself. We felt that was the highest priority. If we ever had a sprinkler head fail in that room and how all the damage it can do. At the same time, we went and asked the consultant for a cost estimate to continue through the rest of Victoria Hall, and so we're saying potentially to do that over 2021 and 2022. The next page, we're back to the market building, the exterior restoration of the woodwork. So we're showing $80,000 there as a project for 2021. The other again, some of these are projects that we've carried forward from year to year. The next one is the permanent site location for the generator that sits out back on the trailer for this building. $35,000 would be the cost to take it off the trailer and permanently mount it to a site behind Victoria Hall. And the final page under the capital section is back to the Victoria Square Phase 4 project. And again, showing that at a cost of $1.5 million with projection of $1 million of grant money should that come through.
Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on the last piece, Mr. Davey, I know we put in the funding, we put in for 1.6 million, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just asking, does this remain 1.5 or should it be 1.6?
Yeah, we might update that page between now and then, yes. And that's it for the capital items.
Any other questions? If I could, we have one item under general government, and both of these reports have been spoken to today. And they include the legislative services, efficiencies, and modernization request, as you see in your agenda, and the human resources efficiencies modernization request. Action recommended that Council receive the reports for information purposes and consider as part of the 2020 budget process, which is what we are doing. Could I have a vote of Council? All in favor? It's Committee of the Whole. I do not need a seconder. All in favor again? Sorry. Carried. And could I also indulge Council for a 5-minute bio break before we speak to our next, I'm sorry, I know you're all sitting there, but we've been sitting there for 2.5 hours, so 3.5, 2.5, 5 minutes. And you are? You're just front and center here today. Okay.
I'll start out, and then Melissa's here if there's other detailed questions.
Okay.
She can respond as well.
It's on page 280 for everyone around the Council table. Yeah.
All right, so page 280, economic development. So one of the main changes or clarifications this year is in terms of the salaries line. One of the things we're asking for is to have a position, in addition to Melissa's position, we're asking for a position for what we're referring to as a receptionist, for lack of a better word, for economic development. At this point in time, we have basically one person. It makes it difficult when that person has to be out of the office, be meeting with potential clients, be off-site, to not have a presence in that building. And so that's what we're proposing in this top section of the budget. That's the main change.
A little confused because we haven't had the discussion yet as to what we're going to do with the Economic Development Department. I know we probably should have had after our former Economic Development manager left. Does anyone have, well, we'll just go forward with that, but we have yet to replace that position, so we need to clarify that before we actually fine-tune this. Thanks.
Okay,
go ahead.
So that's the top section. Moving down through the materials section, you can see it's basically the same total as it was a year ago, 17,280 compared to 17,550 on that line. And then when we move down into the contracted services, you will see liability insurance obviously is the same. There's the contracted service with the County of Northumberland that was entered into as of March 2018. $45,000 is our contribution to the county under that contract. Runs through till 2023. And then there's a line item called studies and reviews of $44,000. And you'll see there is a detailed page that supports that $44,000. You'll see consumer attraction plan, $11,000, youth entrepreneurship partnership of $4,000, the website redevelopment of $24,000, and an economic development strategic plan of $5,000 for the total of $44,000. The other item that's changed on this is a line added in that we're calling Venture 13 anchor rent. which is basically a contribution towards the Venture 13 in recognition of the space that the Economic Development Office takes in that building, the same as any other tenant. So we hadn't done that in the past. You'll see one of the other change there is we had a small amount, $11,000 coming back out of an economic development reserve of $11,000 last year, which is not available this year.
Any questions from any members of council?
Again, if you have any specific questions about any of those projects, or Melissa could speak to them.
I just wanted to know, part of that is the increase in the wages, but the anchor rent. But out of the 44,000, you're showing your budget is increasing by 35.7%. And that concerns me, again, because we haven't had the conversation about where we're going with this department and what we're going to be doing with it. So between now and January, can you maybe fine-tune that and come down a little bit? Because maybe pick one of those four or something, because 35% increase is a lot.
Absolutely, we can. One of the things I think might be important is a strategic plan. Through our partnership with CFDC, we might rely on them to maybe assist us with that, which might decrease that $5,000. But again, I haven't had that conversation with Wendy, but it's something to consider. Again, the website redevelopment, I really want to have economic development be a standalone, really showcase our partnerships and our resources in the town. One of the things I'm really looking for, and I've asked for support from the MLS local realtor or real estate board, is to integrate their services into our website, which will keep our inventory and available properties up to date based off of their information, as well as we can continue with our private owners by listing it on there. And it just is a little more interactive and concrete and available for site selectors on an ongoing basis. So
that's all good. Oh, Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Possibly through you to the CAO or to Melissa, acknowledging that you are a one-person shop pretty much, and also acknowledging that last year, identifying a review of the department. And maybe this is a leadership question or a direction from council, but then at what point are we going to undertake that review? Because I don't think it's fair to the key department that is linked to prosperity and economic development in the town, if we keep saying, and I appreciate that we have to do that review, but then when are we going to either budget for that, or when's that going to come back forward for us to put that into the pipeline so that we can start progressing in that department?
Good points, and I think we have to do that fairly soon, because certainly economic development has taken a lot of changes, has undergone a lot of changes in the year. Of course, we have Venture 13 as well that does a portion of that. So maybe general government will look at that early on in January of next year. And if we have to make any adjustments to this budget, we can do that as we go forward. But certainly we need to know the positions. I mean, your current position is small business facilitator, correct? And I don't see that anywhere in here. I see economic development manager and yeah, so I think we need to really fine tune where we're going with this. And to your point, Councillor Beattie, I think it's time. I'm not sure how the year just disappeared without us doing that, but we did discuss it in our strategic planning, and it is something we need to do. But still try and tweak it a little bit. Thank you.
I will absolutely do that for you.
Okay. Any other questions from members of council?
I think, Deputy Mayor, too, just in terms of clarification, the position basically previously was an economic development officer. What we've had since the retirement of that position is basically Melissa in her position has stepped up and filled that role without really being given the title of economic development officer. And so that's, kudos to her for doing that. And then it's, going forward, where we land on what those positions are.
I totally agree, and we need to have that discussion, and we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then that would take us to our page 286 in my file, which is the Venture 13 operating budget. So council will recall we have Venture 13 opened almost halfway through 2018. So the 2018, both 2018 budget and 2018 actual numbers were estimates. And we now have one full year basically from May to May, and we have almost a full calendar year for 2019 now of results that we're starting to get a much better picture of that building in terms of the operation of the building, the staffing of the building, the programming of the building. All those items are coming into much better focus. You'll see, having said that, the salaries, wages, and benefits line is basically break even. It's actually down a little bit. In terms of moving down through the budget, you'll see under the materials section what's been added in there. We've reduced the advertising and promotions from 30,000 to 15, and in its place we've supplemented that with some additional funding. The partners group there believe that it's important to start having some dollars for providing programming, and so those lines have been added in for programming at 10,000, training and conferences 2,000, and travel expense 300 as new items. Under the next line, the utilities contingency line, you can see there the budget was 65,000. I'm comfortable that the final number under the main utilities budget will be 57,000 will be adequate for 2020. The other item that came on stream was the purchase of power through the solar joint venture that was entered into. That was a joint venture between Lakefront Utilities, Solera, and Viridian. They looked after the installation of the solar network on the roof. They operate that, and we have a purchase of power arrangement agreement with Lakefront Utilities to basically buy the power that's produced from the solar. It was anticipated to be about 40% of the actual power. So the result of that is that we're actually paying a higher price right now than the market rate would be on that, because the contract that was entered into, that council agreed to, was a flat rate over a 20-year period. And the idea was that the rate would be a little higher than market in the early years, and then probably around year 7 or year 8, that would reverse, and the market rate would be higher than the flat rate that's paid under the contract, and we'd start to see some substantial savings going forward. The impact of that is, of course, we're paying a premium, if you will, in these early years, and so the purpose of that line of 36,000 and then a 12,000 credit is to basically set aside some of that excess and put it into what we're calling a prepaid account, and then we'll bring that back into expense in the years when it flips and we start to see savings in the power. So that's sort of the reason for that. Again, we have building maintenance. Now, one of the reasons that is a fairly high number, if you're looking at actual numbers, again, just being in the building a year and a half, there were items that came up once we had people living and working in the building, items that came up that possibly weren't covered during the construction phase, and so there was a fair bit of items that had to be done during the year to cover those that we did, because of the brand new building, we didn't really have a capital budget for that building, so that's the reason. And the reason we feel that 37.5 will be reasonable going forward. And again, we've provided a detailed page further on in the package that shows where that 37.5 comes from. The custodial cleaning, 23,500, and bank service fees of 2,500 round out that section. Nothing really in the contracted services to speak of. The budget number looks significantly down, but a year ago there was a special project in there for $60,900 to do with workforce development, and you'll see that there was also anticipated that would only proceed if there was a red grant received of $28,950 in last year's budget, so that didn't happen, and so the expenditure didn't happen. And then the bottom section, the recovery section, you'll see the anchor tenant rent recovery of $75,000. That reflects the additional amount that we just spoke of coming over from economic development of 15. That's the reason that 75 is increased from 60. The rent recovery from the tenants, transient tenants, again, that's based on anticipated revenues for 2020. And the only other item in that section is a $5,000 recovery from the events that were and programming that's being anticipated. There would be some fees collected for some of that programming, so that's the reason for that. So that gets us to a bottom line total of $222,936. Again, you have to take into consideration that some of those 2019 budget numbers, for instance, included a significant transfer from an economic development reserve of $43,000, which obviously does not continue from year over year. If there's any specific questions about this budget, again, Liz is here, and Wendy Curtis is also here to speak to Venture 13.
Any questions from members of council? I had a financial one. In your rundown, Mr. Davies, under office equipment maintenance, zero budget in 2019 and 17,216 spent, and then but your request for 2020 is only 1,500. Seems a little off.
Yes, so part of what happened in 2019 actual numbers there was some additional requirements in the audio video end, and that is, there wasn't really there wasn't a line item for that, so that's why that shows as the office equipment. So it was improvements in the audio video, and that is offset when you look down below. There was a figure of grants other, $43,784. So there was additional grant funding that came in from the CFDC partially to offset those costs. That's why there won't be a repeat this year.
So again, I'm looking at the transfers and the back and forth, and all that makes sense, and we're all pretty proud of what's happening up there at Venture 13, but it is still, even with all that in and out, 12.9% over last year. So maybe again we can, as we come forward, we can fine-tune that and see if there's anything we can improve on that. I'm a little concerned because most of these budgets are heading towards the 10 to 12% over. So we'll see what happens on January. You're going to be a busy guy in January. I don't have any more questions. Does anyone have any questions? Well, no. Thank you for sitting through all that, but I guess there's no additional questions.
Sorry, the one item that I didn't get to was there is a capital item for 2020 on the in Venture 13, and what that is to do with is to change some of the existing layout to create some additional office space, and perhaps Liz could speak to that one if council.
So we found at Venture 13 that there's been a growing need for office space. I'm sure you've noticed we've got lots of hot seats, the desks that you see in there, and they're only about 60% filled, where our office space is 100% filled. We've got 7 offices right now and a growing wait list where we've got 7 companies and new companies all the time interested in working out of Venture 13 but find that they're in need of an office. When Venture 13 was originally constructed, we've got 2 flex meeting spaces in the middle that are double wide compared to the normal size of an office, and it was designed with the intention that down the road they may be separated to create new office space. With simple drywalling put up between the 2 flex meeting spaces, we can create 4 revenue generating office spaces. The meeting spaces currently right now are not revenue generating. They're a perk to Venture Zone memberships, which we're finding we can supplement with other flexible space within the center. The 5th office would come from, we've got 2 phone booths at Venture 13, which are only used currently by clients who are on the wait list to become or to settle in an office. The project cost we have estimated at about $20,000, and the revenue annualized would be $30,000 from those offices. That revenue is split with the CFDC, so the town's revenue would be $15,000. In the first year, we're anticipating it being a pretty quick project to execute, so by July 1st, if the project is done, that's $7,500 in revenue right there, which accounts for part of the increase in revenue that we're anticipating for next year, and then going forward $15,000 a year.
Any questions for Liz? Councillor Darling?
Yes, thank you for that explanation. So when you say the $20,000 cost, is that the town's cost, or is that the total cost of the renovation, and is the renovation cost being split with CFDC?
That is the town's cost to do what we've spoken about. The CFDC's contribution potentially would be to create new space for flexible meeting spaces that we're taking away by the addition of flexible walls in the space. It would be a nearly equal contribution.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So the that document that I just distributed now was Liz's summary of that capital project, just for your reference.
Well, we've highlighted it. That's all we can do at this point. And we'll bring it back on January 9th and see where we go from there. But no promises. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to Committee of the Whole Open Forum. Any questions, Mr. Draper? Okay. Now, the other item on the agenda is a closed session, and that's only if council needs any verification to any of the operating budget, municipal staff salary, and wages. If no one has any questions, we don't need to do that part of the agenda. We all okay? Can I have a head?
So I guess the question should probably come in closed session in regard to what is a certain individual salary? Yeah, okay. Okay.
We don't publicize the salary pages.
Right.
So if anyone had any questions, we would need to do that in camera.
Okay.
We can maybe, I mean, because the 9th and the 10th are fairly busy. We can also, well, these presentations we've had tonight, that would refer to those. So if anyone has any desire to go in camera, we can, and if not, we can just forego that. Do I have consensus to just let?
I'd like to have one question, like 5 minutes. Just
okay. If you have a question, then
for closed session.
Yeah. Mayor. Oh, sorry, yeah. Mayor, if you'd like to move that, please. The action recommended.
Sorry, I put my notes where. The action recommended that council make closed session in accordance with section 239, subsection 2B of the Municipal Act SO 2001 regarding personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal local employee, operating budget, municipal